What's up, apes, lady apes, gentlemen apes? Hi, this is ApeAndy. Lately, the price action of GME is pretty good, and there are some people who think this is DRS working. My apologies about talking about DRS. I respect your opinion. If you do not like DRS, you don't need to do DRS. If you are for DRS, you know why it works. So you don't have to do DRS if you don't like it, but just hear me out. Just hear me out. If you do DRS, direct registration of shares, put the shares under your name. So it is no longer registered under DTCC, the seed and company name, okay? How does that help the MOASS? Because it is less shares for the SHF to rehypothecate or to borrow or to create synthetic shares with. In other words, for every shares that are DRS'd, direct registered under your name, Ape's name, retail's name, institutional buyer's name, that is one less share that is within DTCC for the SHF to rehypothecate, to make fake shares and synthetic shares with. So it is locking the float, taking the float away from the float available for the SHF to do their trickeries and dotteries. Okay. Now, so what if nobody does DRS? Well, let's go down that path. Nobody does DRS. Then the SHF could keep shorting and creating synthetic shares and selling to UIOUs, which is FTDs. And so it could go into the millions, the billions, and creating so many shares for you to buy, many, many times the float, okay? And yet, that doesn't do anything to the price action, because the SHF, in addition to creating synthetic shares, they could use dark pools, deep dark swimming pool strategies, right? You know how that works, and PFOF. So, given that the example of CMKM, the retail bought billions and billions, or was it trillions, of shares, and yet it did nothing to do, it did nothing to help the stock price go up until the CMKM retail does DRS. And then they found so many billions and billions of, if not upon trillions of phantom shares that almost created a squeeze for CMKM. That's the example. Okay, so the hard truth is that if none of the apes does DRS, the SHF will keep shorting and shorting, and apes, they just, well, believe in buying and HODLing. It's not going to help the MOASS. It's going to help the SHF making more money because they're selling synthetic shares and you're putting cash into their pockets. That's the hard truth, okay? So, look at it this way. DTCC, they could lend out shares because real shares are registered under DTCC. They have a certain amount of the float. They could lend it out to brokers, MMs, SHF, and then they short it, right? Rehypothecate it, short it, create synthetic shares with it. But if you say, okay, ApeAndy, fine, I don't like DRS. I just tell my broker, don't lend out my shares to short, okay? So these are the real shares. This is the synthetic shares you bought, fake shares you bought. And then you tell the broker, don't lend out my shares. These are synthetic shares, IOU shares, naked shorted shares. Don't lend out my shares, okay? You tell your broker. Then you're thinking you're helping the MOASS. A little bit only, but actually not really, because the buck stops here, right? Okay, but then the DTCC, who holds the real shares directly registered under DTCC, they could still keep lending out to brokers, to this broker that you told not to lend out the shares with. So it's not really helping the MOASS, right? You tell the broker, don't lend out your shares, but the DTCC, who holds the real shares, they keep lending out their shares. They keep allowing the SHF brokers, MMs, to rehypothecate with their real shares. So we're going to the root of the cause. We're taking the real shares away from the DTCC. Pluck. We're taking the real shares away from the DTCC's. Pluck. We're taking the real shares away from the DTCC. Pluck. Oh, there's only one left. Don't take me away. I'm a real share. I'm with the DTCC. And with this real share, I could lend to many brokers, lend to many MM, and lend to many SHF, and then they could branch out and rehypothecate from there, right? Pluck. You directly registered it. DTCC has no more float, 0 shares. Then the SHF, they're in trouble. They're going to have to go and buy all the synthetic shares, IOUs, back, right? Then that's the trigger for the MOASS. See? Okay, wait. Now, ApeAndy, I still don't like DRS. Then that's fine, that's fine. If you don't like DRS, don't do DRS. Let the other apes and retail do their DRS to create and trigger the MOASS for you, the ones who don't like DRS, who keep shares at brokers, to sell quickly during the MOASS. Because the only reason you don't want to do DRS is because you sell less quickly. You sell very slowly if you DRS, right? So if you don't like DRS, don't DRS. Let other people and other apes do DRS. Trigger the MOASS so you, who don't like DRS, can sell fast. But for those who do DRS, are you at a disadvantage? Personally, I don't think so. Because you're slower to sell, you get to sell at the king peak. Because when the MOASS happens, the SHF must cover. It's harder because you're slower to sell, right? So the SHF can't cover your shares, can't buy back your shares. They buy back the synthetic shares. They buy back the quick seller shares first. And then they come and buy your real shares. And you're slower to sell. So you get to sell at the king peak. Get it? MOASS, sell quickly. SHF bought all the synthetic shares back. Hey, there's still shares to buy. Then they buy the real shares, which are slower to sell, the DRS shares. The DRS shares are slower to sell. It seems like you're at disadvantage. But you're the true apes. You're the true buy and HODL apes, not buy for quick sell during MOASS apes. I'm sorry to say that, okay? But truth of the matter is, if there's no DRS, apes could forever buy synthetic shares. There'll be no MOASS. Okay, market crash will cause MOASS. Market crash will cause MOASS. Don't think so, not really. Market crash, unless an SHF goes broke, then they get margin called. I don't think so. But what if market crashed and then no GME or AMC squeeze? Then that is huge disappointment. Then the apes will say, oh, the theory of MOASS doesn't exist. Go away, right? So the SHF, I'll tell you their strategy. Their strategy is, let's hope the apes don't believe in DRS, okay? So, because if apes don't believe in DRS, then keep waiting for MOASS. No trigger. And if you wait long enough, people don't believe in the MOASS thesis anymore. People go away. The SHF may win the waiting game. The SHF may win the waiting game. But retail knows the trigger now. That's why the SHF are spreading FUD to unsettle those apes who are not decided yet. Okay? Buy and hold and DRS. If you don't like DRS, don't do DRS. Let the others do it for you. Okay? Love you, apes. Love AMC, Jimmy, AMC. Be strong.